Welcome back to Hermione Fanfic Fanatics. You're here with Carrie Ann, Holly, and Tracy, and today we are going to talk about the fanfic Choice and Chance by Chaos and Crumpets. It has 30 chapters. It is completed. It's got 116,972 words. You can find this on AO3. I found it on fanfic. Didn't you say, Holly, there are a couple audio versions out there as well?
There is an audio version by ETL Echo.
So if you want to listen to it, go ahead. And just so you know, we're going to talk about it. So spoilers, if you haven't read it, pause, go read it, come back, and so we can talk about it. So.
Yep. It's great. And we've been told that this podcast is going to be a little bit different this time.
Yeah, this episode, because guess who didn't read it? Not me.
Sorry. I'm sorry. So basically, they're just going to talk about it to convince me to read it. So if you really haven't read it and you're fine with spoilers, this is for you too.
Because Tracy spoils everything for herself, honestly.
Yes, I
do. She could read the last page of anything, she will immediately. It doesn't matter.
That's why I read things on like a Kindle, because like for some reason that just hurts me physically. Yeah, I don't like doing that. So if I have a physical book, I'm known to skip through and read a paragraph or read the last page. So, but
I remember you doing that back when we first started really Marco Poloing, like when you first got me to read Remain Nameless. You got on Marco Polo, and I swear, I think it was one of the Throne of Glass books, and you hadn't read them all yet, and you started skipping forward, and you're like, and you started crying, and you were like, no, I mean, I knew this happened because I saw the spoiler, but...
trying to remember what part, but that happened more than once, so...
I swear it was Throne of Glass, but it may not have been.
But it depends what book in the Throne of Glass series, because I'm sure I did that multiple times.
It was so funny, and I'm like, why would you do that to yourself? And then I started reading all of these fan fictions, Tracy, and I found myself doing it a lot.
Sometimes
and I will never do it.
Yes.
So yeah, sometimes I won't. Sometimes, like I didn't with other things, but like sometimes if it's just slow, you gotta give yourself a reason to keep going. That's how I am, because I will DNF something so quick now. So I just I read forward to give it a chance, and if something.
But if you read the ending, then you know how it ends. So why would that convince you to go back and read it?
I don't usually read the last page. Usually I don't read the last page. I just skip forward. Like I'll just skip a few chapters, read a paragraph, and I'll just kind of keep doing that. But
I think the major one, because I mean I've done that a couple of times, but the most memorable one I think I did it for was Timeless. You guys haven't read that one yet, but
it's sad.
I had to sure I was gonna be okay emotionally by the end of that book.
That's another reason. Anyway. If you're upset, you gotta read forward to make sure it's okay.
This is true. So. I have to do that. Anyway, so we're going to be convincing Tracy that this book is worth it to read, which I fully believe that it is.
I liked it. I do like it. I think it was good to read, but I also see where Tracy's coming from, because I felt like it took a while for me to get into it. And this is definitely one, like, how many times have you read this, Holly?
Three times.
And I've read this once, and I feel like I missed so much. Like, I would need to read it probably 2 or 3 times to feel like I really understood the entire story.
Because it's very complex.
Okay, because it wasn't for a lack of trying on my side. Well, I guess it kind of was. I tried reading it more than once, and I skipped through and I skimmed, and I couldn't focus. And that was more of a timing issue on my part, not because it wasn't interesting and the premise isn't interesting. I just couldn't focus.
Okay, so yeah, let's talk about like what the fic is. So it is this alternate cute little universe where Voldemort's not a thing. So Draco and Hermione are just like normal school kids. Cool. And they're meeting up it starts with them meeting up to go to the Department of Mysteries, because they're doing like a little internship thing, pretty much. And you find out that Draco is best friends with Harry.
And Harry's a Slytherin. You don't find this out till like halfway through the book when they're all talking about their alternate world with each other. But yeah, it's funny. I love it. I love they added so many intricate details that just it rounded this story out. I use that phrase all the time with all these fics. This is a well-rounded story.
It's important. That's
Yeah.
important. If it's well-rounded,
Yes.
it's important.
Mm-hmm.
But you find out like Hermione is best friends with Neville.
Yep.
And they're just, they're going to this department. They both want to work in the time department.
Draco and Hermione.
Yeah, there's probably a fancier term for that, isn't there?
The Department of Mysteries?
Well,
the time room?
The time room or whatever. And so they go in and they're talking and doing whatever. And they walk to this fancy room. And how I imagined it in my head, because everything I imagined, I don't know why. You know in the movies where they have like the board with the string? I don't know why, like the crime board, with like the red string that like ties everything. I don't know why I imagined a bunch of like red yarn strings like across the ceiling, but they go into this weird room with strings, and that's like the different time universes or whatever. And they're told not to touch, but Hermione's like, I'm gonna touch it, and so she does.
It seduces her into touching it. Not that's a weird word to use for that, but it
draws
just
her in. And,
draws her in, and she doesn't even realize that she touches it.
And Draco
she has no idea, and Draco comes and grabs her.
He's like, hey,
don't, but he didn't realize that she touched it either, and she touched it when he touched her, and they were transported to a different reality.
But they don't realize it because they're in the same room. Like, no, like fancy lights.
Nothing happened. No lights. Nothing.
Pushing of air. She felt a little sick.
Yeah.
And then they walk out of that room because they noticed the like trainer wasn't with them. It's like, oh, like where'd she go? Let's go find her. And then that's when they noticed the undesirable
poster
of Hermione.
Yeah.
Yes.
I won't lie, because I remember like all of this, what you're saying. What you're saying makes total sense. When I was reading it, didn't click. I had no idea what was going on.
I do remember this when I read it the first time through. So I just listened to it. I haven't actually read it. I had to repeat parts of these chapters because I'm like, wait, okay, what's going on? I'm so confused. And so I did have to repeat it several times to make sure that I understood what was going on. But you really don't understand what's going on until they get going.
That's not necessarily a bad thing, because I know like the author did that on purpose.
Yes.
Which is good, just for my mentally ill brain of not focusing and keeping with it at this time. It was not okay. Because I did.
It's okay. You were daydreaming of fairy men. Fairy? Is that fairy?
He's an angel. We don't talk. Don't bring my husband into your mouth.
the one that my husband is the fae, so you're fine. Anyway, you've got the angel. I've got the fae. We're fine.
Anyways,
no, I didn't realize it was an alternate universe when I first started reading it. I had no idea, so I was like, what the hell is happening? And because they didn't, like, the room didn't change, and all of a sudden it was there, I was like, wait, what am I missing? And so I did panic, and that's when I stopped reading. So anyway.
So for everyone listening, and I guess to help you, Tracy, so they were in alternate universe, and then when they touched the string and left, they go into what we all normally know, and that would be where Voldemort is real, and they're in the middle of the war and all of that stuff. So that's how it ties in. Okay.
Yeah, it's great premise.
But yeah, so they get there and they go looking for the unspeakable, who's giving them kind of like the look around the tour.
Yeah.
And don't find her. They see a poster of Hermione as undesirable number 2, and he's like, "What'd you do, Granger?" And she's like, "Nothing." Like, what? This is a joke. Like, there's no way.
Because then didn't they see the poster of Harry right next to it? And she's like, well, what did he do? And
undesirable like, number 1. And he's like, I don't have any idea what is going on, And then they have a couple of run-ins with different Death Eaters. I mean, Umbridge,
the nasty little
isn't
gross
a Death Eater, but she is.
40 or 50? Isn't she old?
Yeah, and she flirts with him.
Like,
it's gross.
And like touches Draco.
Yeah,
like
it's gross. And he's just like,
yuck.
And she says, she calls Hermione a mudblood, and he's like, okay, something is wrong because we don't use that language. Like, that's quite derogatory. Like,
And this is the chapter that I think helped to distinguish this Draco and Hermione from the first universe versus the Draco and Hermione from the second one, who will now and henceforth be known as Granger and Malfoy for distinction. Okay. Because there are 2 of them.
Yep. Yes.
So the beginning
and this is how the author distinguishes them.
Yes. So the beginning people are Draco and Hermione. And then the normal Draco and Hermione that we know with Lord Voldemort, they're going to be Malfoy and Granger. And so this chapter 2 was the chapter that really helped you find out that, like, Draco is not who Malfoy is. Like, he finds out that Hermione is an undesirable, and he doesn't question it. And he's like, okay, like, we're going to figure this out. We're going to try to help you. And it turns out that Hermione is the little rule breaker, and she ends up, like, throwing out some curses and stuff. And I wrote down a note because I was like, honestly, if Hermione wasn't friends with Harry, I do think she would be a little bit of a villain. Like, with everybody looking down on, like, her blood and, like, having to, like, prove herself, I've always seen, like, she could have a huge villain story. And so her, like, being the more aggressive one in that pairing, I was like, that makes sense to me.
I can honestly I can see her snapping.
Yeah.
You know, finally she would just snap one day. I never thought of that, so.
It made sense to me that when she is not friends with Harry and they're in a situation, she's going to be a little bit more aggressive than Draco is. And so that was what happened in chapter 2. At least I found.
I loved the moment in chapter 2 when they're fleeing from the ministry, trying to get out, and they're throwing spells, hexes, curses, whatever, and they make it to the telephone booth and they make it in.
It's
and
so
they
slow.
start their descent up, and it's so slow. And they're just watching all of them watch them as they're going up the atrium. And Draco starts laughing. He goes, "This is just so slow." It's so funny.
I think he said something about, like, this is the slowest criminal getaway or something like that. Like, it's so dumb. And so,
but it's funny, and you're like, okay, that's funny. And then as soon as they get out, he apparates them to Malfoy Manor because he's like, my parents will be able to help.
I got to figure out what's going on.
But yeah, something's going to be able to help. And so they apparate to Malfoy Manor into his room.
Okay. And then this is where you meet Malfoy. Okay. So remember, 2 separate people.
Yes,
Malfoy
sorry, I
meets
keep using
Draco
Malfoy
and Hermione. And he is like, okay. And he's very confused about Hermione because he thinks that she is Granger. And he thinks that Draco is, like,
polyjuiced.
Yeah, like someone else. And he's like, you guys are idiots. And they're like, no, please. Like,
well, and he comes into his room, and the first thing he does is knock Draco out because obviously he sees himself in there and is like, He didn't even see Granger though, so she disarms him. And
Hermione.
He's like, oops, yes, sorry. That's one of the problems.
I need a board to be like this one and this one.
It makes it confusing. Yeah, so he doesn't see Hermione in there, and she's like, what the hell? Like, so she disarms him and is like, so they go through the whole thing of having to explain to Malfoy that he's Draco, and they're assuming from a different universe because they don't know what's going on. And, so they talk a little bit about, their time in the time room. And they think if they just go back and touch the same thread, they'll be able to go back to their world. And he's like, well, that's not possible because there's no way you're getting back into the Department of Mysteries right now. So you guys get to go figure out whatever you have to figure out.
and then it's at this moment that they have caught and are bringing in Harry, Ron, and Granger. And that's
from on the run.
Yeah, from On the Run. Yep. That's the moment that they're brought into Malfoy Manor, is the same time that they apparated in. So that's where it matches up in the timeline.
Hermione's getting tortured and
Granger is getting
tortured, and Hermione's like, well, we can't just leave, her here. And Draco's like, yeah, you're totally right. Let's go save her.
But Malfoy's like, I'm not doing that.
Yeah,
What do it.
And he's like, you've already incriminated me. Like, everybody has seen you escape the ministry now. Like, that's me. There's no way they're going to not believe me. And so he goes with them and escapes with them.
What happened? The getaway was kind of crazy. So Granger is getting cut with the knife by Bellatrix at that point. And Malfoy is standing in the room, right? Draco and Hermione apparate in behind a chair, pop out. Draco takes care of Greyback, right?
Was it Malfoy or was it Draco that does it?
I thought it was Draco.
Okay.
Because Hermione somehow disarms Bellatrix. like has never fought against her before.
I can't remember this.
I know
Uh-oh.
she did because I was reading it. I just barely did. So
I'm glad you did.
Disarmed Bellatrix, and then Malfoy was then talking to his mom and was like, well, I'm screwed. And she's like, yeah, you gotta go, but you have to stun me and take away my wand to make it seem like a real thing. So he had to stun his own mom, and then they ran. And you find out, you go into one of the black, has like someone in the black line had like a safe house hidden somewhere. And you could this part was a little confusing to me, I think, just because I didn't understand it. It seems like there's like low and high tide kind of thing. Like the entrance is hidden by water and you can only access it like twice a day. It seemed weird to me.
Okay.
Harriet, that's in ACOTAR. The entire purpose?
It didn't like click to me, okay? But all I could know is that yes, you can only get in like once or twice a day, okay?
Okay.
I know what you're talking about. It just clicked for me, you weenie. Okay. Anyways, they go in. They did grab Granger from the floor. She's like unconscious. She just had the curse and she was cut, and so they took her. You go into the little safe house and you find Theo. You find out that Draco Malfoy has been hiding Theo.
Theo got out by Draco. No, by Malfoy. By Malfoy. I know. It's so
Are you with us? Do you understand who we're talking about, the different peoples and everything? Okay, so we haven't lost her yet. Okay, so this was about the time that I was like, I really don't think I'm smart enough for this. It was taking me quite a bit, and that's my third note that I wrote. I don't know if I'm smart enough. So, anyways, they're in this little safe house. They're like, what do we do? Malfoy is taking care of Granger. He's like healing her.
I loved this. I loved this.
You weren't prepared because he didn't want to save her.
He didn't want to save her. And then as soon as they get to the safe house, he takes charge.
And is taking care of her and is
healing her, doing all this stuff. And like, it's almost like he's possessive over her. And you're going.
It's so cute. And at the same time, Draco and Hermione, little lovebirds that they are kind of warming up to each other, right? And Theo
made this story.
He's so funny.
Oh
he's like, oh, this is interesting.
He's great.
And then Draco and Hermione walk off, and he says to Malfoy, like, didn't he say like $20 they'll have sex in the next day or something like that? Like, they're cute off in the middle of La La Land.
He didn't say it quiet, so of course Hermione's like going bright red, like, oh no.
So it takes a couple days for Granger to like wake up and realize like where she is and everything, and she's like, where's Harry? Where's Ron? Like, obviously.
And they're like, we don't know.
Sucks to suck. And she doesn't have her wand. This is an important thing to mention, is that Granger does not have her wand after being tortured. I don't think it says like where it went.
I think they just left it.
Yeah.
I think. Yeah.
But Hermione has her wand, and so she gives it to Granger to like prove like, I am you. You can take a look, have my wand. And Granger tries to use it to apparate out of the safe house, and she can't. She has, it's saying that after all of I always say it wrong. You say it, the curse.
The Cruciatus curse.
That one. After having that curse put on her, that she's having problems with her magic because of like how long she was experiencing it. So I thought this part was kind of funny, how it all happened. So she wakes up, right? And Malfoy's like, you're not leaving because you will get us caught. And like, that's just like, I spent 3 days trying to save you. You're not going to run out and get yourself killed right away. And so she's like sitting there and she goes, oh, wait, can you call house elves? And he's like, yes. She's like, and like the black ones, because you're a black, like part of the black family line. It's like, yeah. So she's like, can you call Creature? And so he calls Creature to them and gets Creature to be this little messenger for a minute to find Harry and Ron for her.
Okay.
Draco and Hermione are just chilling, okay? They're just
they're just chilling
in the background. They don't know what they're doing. They're just, they're in their own little world, okay? And so Granger is like, okay, they like agree to have just Ron and Harry get apparated in with Creature, like come to the safe house so they can all meet and so they can be reunited. And they're like, nobody will harm anybody and it'll be fine. And so this I thought was kind of dumb, but whatever. They send out Hermione and Draco.
I know. Yes.
To grab Harry and Ron instead of Granger.
It's because he didn't want Granger to leave. That was one of his stipulations because he's taking care of her and making sure that she's okay, which you're like, why are you doing this, Malfoy? Doing
Even
this.
Theo the whole time is kind of like side-eyeing them, like,
yes.
So anyways, so they come in and Ron and Harry are obviously like, what the hell is happening? Like, they think they're being set up. And so they like start attacking, and it's this whole thing. Finally, Granger's like, sit down, shut up, like, we're gonna talk, and explains everything. And so they're like, oh, okay. So everybody's just kind of fine that there's Hermione and Draco just chilling. Again, they're like, I don't know how to get home. And it's the middle of the war. And they're like, okay, we got to figure out like what to do. And they're trying to make the normal plan that Granger, Harry, and Ron are, because they're still trying to get all of the Horcrux stuff. Am I missing anything so far? I guess I'm just reading the whole fic to you at this point.
I was gonna go back and just say I liked it when they're all sitting around the table and they're talking about the other reality.
That's coming up in just a minute.
Oh, okay, then we'll get there.
So they're all just, chatting, and I laughed because they were like, oh, maybe Granger is being imperious. And so I laughed. This was probably my favorite line in the whole fic. Malfoy looks over and says, bark like a dog, Granger. And she turns around and goes, what? No! And to like prove that she's not under the Imperious curse. I was like, that's so dumb. I don't know why. So anyways, they're like still
favorite line.
I know. Something's wrong. It's fine. So they're all just like hanging out. And this is where Theo comes out. And
I love this.
He's like, let's play a drinking game.
Because what Hermione is good without a drinking game?
Yeah.
None.
And so it's pretty much like a question and answer kind of game of like, okay, if you ask a question about that alternate universe and it's true, you take a little drink. If it's wrong, you take a big drink. And so it's just pretty much everybody's drinking anyways. And so they're like going back and forth. And Harry was like, oh, I'm a Gryffindor, right? And they're both like, nope, a Slytherin. And
he's like, no, that's not even possible. And then he's like, well, am I still at least with Ginny? And Draco goes, you're with Weaslette. He's like, yes, no.
And you find out in Draco and Hermione's universe, he and Theo are together.
Uh-huh. And he announces that at that table.
So both Theo and Harry are like,
plants that seed.
Yeah, this is where you find out that Ron in the other universe is not connected to either Harry or Hermione. Because
not friends with either of them.
He at some point was kind of said some rude comments to Hermione as a child. And so she just like wasn't friends. And because Harry is in Slytherin, he's just not friends.
Yep.
But they talk about like what positions in Quidditch they do and like what their favorite, they ask about Snape and he's not a thing in the other universe. They have a different defense against the dark arts teacher. And they're like, oh, I'm surprised. I've never heard that name. So they're just like going back and forth and like talking about all this stuff. It was cute. A little bit of like relief from all of the mind.
It was. And it was just cute. Yeah. It was funny. I just liked the introduction of Theo and Harry. I'm like, oh, did we just plant a seed?
Harry
yes, we did.
Asks first. And both Draco and Hermione are just like, you're with someone. And you seem very, very, like, you're both disgustingly happy.
Draco's like, you're disgustingly happy.
And then Theo asks if he's seeing anyone. And they're like, yes, it's actually Harry. And so they weren't going to say anything. But then Theo asked. So obviously they have to tell him. So this is at about halfway through the fic, just so you know. That's about the halfway mark. So then they're coming up with the next play. Do you have questions? I guess. Let's pause.
I guess most of it's like questions not necessarily for you. It's more for like, okay, well, how did they get out without Harry and Ron? Like, how did they get out of the manor without them? Like, who took them to the cottage?
Malfoy.
Hey, wait. Are you asking how Harry and Ron got out of the manor?
Oh, Dobby.
Then how did the 4 duplicates, the 2 sets of duplicates?
Malfoy apparated them to the safe house because that's where he took Theo originally, so he knew where he was going.
Okay.
And
so
he apparated all of them together, and I think it was even a question when it was happening, like, are we all going to be okay? Oh, well, I guess we're going to find out. I think. Unless that was another fic.
No, I think that was this one.
Okay.
Uh,
No, it's quite easy to follow.
When I'm summarizing, I know I'm so good at this.
Yeah,
you want to go or should I keep
this.
going?
No, I'm so happy that you're doing this. This is great. I stop you when I need to stop you, so
Okay.
it's fine.
So, after the full drinking game, Harry, Ron, and Granger are like, okay, well, we need to go. We need to figure out, we need to get the rest of the, like, Horcruxes. We need to go. And so while they were at the manor, being tortured and everything, Bellatrix was very odd about them breaking in, asking if they had broken into her vault. And so they kind of come to the conclusion of like, okay, there's something in there. So obviously we're going to have to get in. And they're like coming up with little plans and they're going to like try to figure it out. And Malfoy walks in to them planning and they're all trying to be like secretive. And he's like, well, you're going to break into Bellatrix's vault, right? I'm like, no. He's like, well, listen, your plan's dumb. And he's like, tell me your plan. And they're like, oh, well, Granger was going to do Polyjuice and become Bellatrix. And I loved this point because Malfoy gets protective.
Mm-hmm.
He yells at Ron and Harry because he's like, she literally was just tortured by that woman. And now you want her to be her? Yep. And he's like, you are so insensitive. And he like was so mad at them. And like Granger's little like thing, she's like, oh, kind of cute. She's like, oh, I've never had anybody stand up for me. So anyways, it was kind of cute that happened. But at this point, again, Draco and Hermione, the little alternate universe kids, are in their own world. Okay?
Yes.
The next chapter, and this is why I had a question, okay? It's alluded. Draco and Hermione go in the room, they shut the door, noises are coming out, right? I thought they were having sex.
I mean, they're getting close to it.
I guess they didn't go all the way, but they're
doing some
like
sort of
hand job,
foreplay
blow
in there.
jobs,
Yes,
something.
Yep.
Okay.
You can. This is my favorite part. I think. Yep, this is my favorite part in this entire fic. My favorite part.
Making noise, and so Granger walks into like the kitchen, and Malfoy's in there, and he says the best thing. He's like,
"You can't sleep."
He's like, what do you think I could be doing to make you sound like that?
Oh my gosh.
Generous lover. I would make you come first. She's like, oh my God. And they're like having sex.
You can hear them fully. And they're moaning up a storm.
And she's like,
but man. And
Granger is like bright red. She has no words. And her Malfoy is just like, he like leans over and he's like, yeah, I would definitely like have you come first and it would be good. And then he just like was like, okay, good night, and walked away. The tension between Granger and Malfoy was so good.
It is hypnotic. It's so good.
You have cute Hermione and Draco who are just cute. They're attached to the hip. They're doing all their little things. And you get to read about them, which is cute.
Yes, it is cute.
The angst and like, so anyways.
From the other two, it's great. Yes. Like it is. It you get fluffy Draco and Hermione, and then you get angsty Granger and Malfoy. And I love it. Like their first kiss, the fluffy Draco and Hermione, it's when
he walks her to the bedroom.
No, so it's wait, no, but that's not their first kiss, is it? Because he just kisses her cheek, I think. Wait, or does she? Might be their second kiss that I'm thinking of. I don't know. If they do kiss there, it's just a quick little, here's the taste of me. Good night. And then she's sharing a room with Granger after she wakes up for the first day. And
because
then that
the
night
safe house is not very big. So they kind of have to share rooms.
And so she's sleeping with Granger, and then she gets punched or kicked in the middle of the night, and it splits her lip because Granger is having a nightmare about obviously the torture and stuff. And she it splits her lip. The boys come running into the room. Malfoy first. Malfoy first is like, gets over there, is like trying to wake her up, do whatever, and like calm her down. And Draco comes in and is like, we should probably leave so that she doesn't have an audience. Or no, Drake or Malfoy says you should leave so that
you're
there's
not
not
doing
an
it
audience.
right.
I know, you do it then. You do it. You tell me.
But all he does is sit down and like hold her hand and just like be there. I was like, so cute. So anyway,
And so they leave, and they're
Draco
like,
and Hermione
so you're
leave.
gonna stay here with her? Yes. And so Draco, Hermione, and Theo leave. Theo goes to bed, and then
They're in the
Draco
living
and
room.
Hermione are in the living room, and he's like, your lip. So he heals her lip and then touches it. And it's like, so you're just.
It was
It's
so cute.
And then they make out, and it's great.
Okay, because now I totally forgot about it. After Granger wakes up and they have all these people, they're like, we need supplies. We need food. We're like eating all this stuff. And Malfoy is nervous that if he leaves, his dark mark is going to get like tracked or like they're going to find him. So he's like, I don't think I can leave. So, Hermione and Draco are like, oh, well, we'll go. Like, we can disillusion ourselves and we'll go. And Harry gives them the invisibility cloak. And Draco, his whole face lights up. He is like, you have no idea how many times I asked to borrow this from you. So they go out and they're doing this thing. They have a little run in. They get out. They're waiting because, again, they can only get into the safe house like twice a day. So they're like waiting for it to like let them back in. And they hide under the invisibility cloak and make out on the beach. Draco's like, this is the most action this cloak has ever seen.
Yes.
God.
And it's so cute. Like you're getting this super cute, fluffy story on the side. It's great. I just love it. And then, the whole time, and then you're like, oh, and then the other two are going to get together and it's going to be great. And it is.
Okay. So I've jumped around a lot. So anyways, back to like the full plot. So they decide, since Malfoy was like, hell no, Granger is not becoming Bellatrix, I will kill you. They decide that Hermione will do it. She's like, I'll do it. I will do the polyjuice. It'll be fine.
Yep.
Okay. And so then they decide, okay, she can't just go in.
By herself.
Draco is like, hey, I can become my father. I can like do like an age potion.
Yeah.
And like nobody will know the difference. And then we can both walk in because they're like, oh, it's like blood. Like to get into the vault.
And they're like, what do you mean you can do an age potion? He goes, oh, I do this all the time back home to pretend that I'm my dad. And I go in and I do things.
So they like make they make their potions and whatever. And they go and they get into the vault and they're like, this is kind of easy. This is when they're getting the Ravenclaw cup. That's the Horcrux that they're getting.
Hold on.
Sorry.
Hold on. They go, so when they're going to the vault, obviously they go through the downpour of water and it washes away all enchantments, right? And Hermione slips some...
Another polyjuice. She had two.
Yeah, so she slips it like really, really fast because she suspected something like that might happen. And so she slipped it really fast. And so before she even transformed back into herself, she was already back as Bellatrix. But Malfoy was himself again. Draco was himself again. And the goblin looks back at them and assesses them and then kind of does he smirk or something, just turns back around and they keep going.
Doesn't say anything.
And they both look at each other like, what just happened? And then when they get into the vault, she's like,
that seems easy.
Yeah, that was too easy. He's like, I don't think goblins really see age that well because they're so old and they don't really care about wizards and witches all that much that they just don't really see it. So they just saw me, my white blonde hair, and thought, we're good to go.
Oh my God.
Yeah. So anyways, they get it. They leave. They're like, wow, easy peasy. And they get back to the safe house and Granger, Harry, and Ron are like, okay, well, we need to, figure out the rest. And they finally open up a little bit more to Malfoy of like, okay, this is what we're looking for. And they're saying like, we need something from each of the houses. And Malfoy was like, oh, actually, in the room of requirements, I think I know what you're looking for. The crown, the Ravenclaw crown. I've seen it. I used it to mark where the vanishing cabinet was. And they're like, oh, so we have to go back to Hogwarts. And we're like, okay. So Harry, Ron, and Hermione were planning on just going. And again, protective Malfoy comes in. He's like, "You're not good, Granger. You need to lay down. You're like sick. Your magic isn't working." And she's like, "Don't say anything. I'm fine." And like, she was getting kind of grumpy with him. And he's like, "No, stay." So then they decide they're all going to go. Okay. Theo decides not to go. He's like, "Listen, I'm not strong on either side." He's like, "But I do have friends, and I don't think I'd be able to like hurt them, and I'm just not." He kept saying like, "That's not for me, so no." Okay, and you're like, I wrote down, I was like, I kind of wish that Theo would join them, but that's fine. But then there's a little bit of tension between him and Harry that you're like,
and then say it.
Okay,
What happened?
What do you mean? What happened? The next
what
part?
ended up happening? Yes.
Okay, so they go into Hogwarts, right?
Oh no, never mind. Before this.
What?
You're missing something. You're missing a big key thing. Remember how the seed was planted that,
there's
Theo and Harry
between Theo
were together.
And Harry.
Yes, there's tension. But Harry leaves something with Theo.
Oh, he leaves his vanishing, his invisibility cloak with
Theo. He says, "Take this." He's like, "Well, wouldn't you need it more than me?" I can't remember what Harry says
and
to
Harry
him.
was like, "Well, he's like, no, I want him to know I'm coming. Like the time for hiding is done, but you might
and
need
it's like,
it." And like,
why would you give somebody your invisibility cloak? What?
I read into that immediately. What? I was like, he just wants him to come back. I was like,
oh, okay. Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, buddy.
So,
anyway.
They go, whatever. They split into some groups so that way Granger and Ron can go down and get the
things.
And then the rest of them go to the Room of Requirement. At the Room of Requirement, they run into all of, I think it's Dumbledore's army at that point, right? Like they're all hiding in there. Is that what?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
They're all hiding in the Room of Requirement. And they're like, what do we do? And they're like, listen, you guys got to get out. We got to change this to find what we need. So they kick everybody out of the room.
Yep.
And that's when Granger and Ron come back up.
And then, but when they get there, Harry's like, okay, you're about to see two people, but they're not the two people that you know. And you just need to trust me on this. And trust them when they come through. So Draco comes through and everyone's like, ah! And Harry's like, just stop. He's not Malfoy.
Anyways, he was trying to explain like everybody is fine. And so most of the army knew at that point that there were two Hermiones and two Dracos. And Harry pretty much was just like, they're both fine. Like, leave them alone. They're fine. Don't worry about it. Get out. So they all leave. They change the room into the Room of Hidden Things.
Mm-hmm.
And they're like looking for the crown. So Malfoy and Granger are looking, and they've kind of had like a little bit of like tension the whole time, right? Just a little bit. And he walks up to her, and like she was facing away from him at first, but he like turns her to face him, and they kiss, okay? And it becomes heated very quick, okay? At some point, he picks her up. Like, they're in this passionate kiss, right? All of a sudden, she opens her eyes and is met with, it's dark with a wall. He put her in the closet.
The vanishing cabinet.
The vanishing cabinet, and pushed her through. And then the second that she was through, he destroyed it.
Yep, so she opens up the door in Borgin and Burke's, and Theo is there waiting for her.
Malfoy talked to Theo and was like, I'm going to send something important through the cabinet, so be ready.
He's like, oh, I didn't know it'd be you.
I didn't know it'd be you. And so on that side, Theo and Hermione are over, or Granger are over there. In the room, obviously, like Harry and Ron, they turn to Malfoy and they're like, what did you do? And he's like, you guys know as good as I have that she shouldn't have been here. Like, she's not okay, and she needs to, like, so protective. He's like, she can't be here.
It's funny because in my head, I feel like Draco wouldn't have been or Malfoy wouldn't have even been able to have said anything in defense of whatever he just did. Ron would have cursed him. He would have been gone.
But Hermione was there.
Yeah.
And she was like, guys, I saw it. Like, she was trying to cast a simple Lumos with
and she couldn't.
Malfoy's mom, Narcissa's wand. And she couldn't. And so she was like, she wouldn't help. She's not helping. She would just be in the way. She's more danger. Like, it makes sense. So everybody just kind of like, okay. They let it go. because they're like, we still have Hermione. So even if we don't have Granger, we have. So anyway, so they just let it go. Okay. So I laughed very hard when he puts her in the closet. I really did. I was like, that's really freaking funny. And she was so mad. And so then Harry and Ron and Draco and Hermione and Malfoy, they go up they find the white stag, that like a little doe that like pops up like a Patronus. And so they like follow it and it leads them to Snape. And Harry immediately is like, I'm gonna get you. And he's like, okay, there are memories over there from Albus if you want to watch them. I don't really care. It's crazy. So Harry watches them, comes back up, and this part I was a little confused on because he looks at Draco, not Malfoy, and says, do you trust me? And Draco, in his universe, is best friends with Harry, so he's like, of course. And all of a sudden, Harry turns around, takes Malfoy's wand, and then leaves. Like, apparates. And I was like, why would he ask Draco if he trusted him and not Malfoy if he took Malfoy's wand?
I don't either. I don't either. And let's be honest here, you can't apparate in and out of Hogwarts.
In Hogwarts. Okay. Okay.
Number one rule to remember.
So anyways, so he leaves. And they're mad. And then you get to the other part where Hermione is trying to convince Theo, or Granger is trying to convince Theo. She's like, listen, I need to be there. Because she's like, in her mind, this is the end. She's like, I need to be there. I need to watch him as he kills. Like, I need to be there. They need me. And Theo is like, no, I made a promise. You're not going anywhere. And she's like wearing him down. And so he agrees that as long as she stays under the cloak, and as soon as they make it to Hogwarts, they just go to the infirmary or whatever, the Great Hall or wherever, and they're just helping with the injured people. That was like the compromise that they came to. But Theo the whole time is like, he's like, I'm not here to fight. But then they come across Lavender with, who was it? Is it Greyback?
Greyback.
That's like attacking her. And Theo was the one that stunned him. And like walked up and stunned him. So he did eventually start getting into like actually helping and taking, like, doling out some curses and helping. But then they go to the wherever all the injured people, I don't remember what room it was, but they go and they help everybody. So that's where Granger is for most of this. Okay. Are you still with me?
Yes.
So then they are, fighting and whatever. They've destroyed. I thought this was cute. I skipped this before they went up to the room. They had Malfoy destroy the crown.
Mm-hmm.
Like with the fang. I thought that was cute because Harry was like, you're going to need this, like, on your record when we go to trial. Like, you need to do this. And so he was the one that destroyed it. So anyways, all of a sudden, they're all like trying to figure out what's happening. And then they hear Voldemort announcing that Harry's dead. And they're like, oh shit, what now? And that's when Neville cuts off the head of the snake. And all of a sudden, Harry's back and they're having their final battle or whatever. At this point, Granger is back, like, fighting. She's like in the main area with everyone. And Bellatrix shows up. And I kind of skipped over this part earlier. They had to leave the safe house pretty quickly because after the vault, Bellatrix did. I skipped this. I'm sorry. I didn't realize
How did I not realize?
So, after they went to the vault and back, and they're like, oh, this is really easy. Bellatrix did know, and she followed them and came. She said that Narcissa told them about the safe house. And so she came into like the safe house with two people and was like trying to attack. And they did end up stunning her and the other two people. Okay. I was a little mad. I was like, why didn't they kill her right then and there? Like, they just stunned her. Like, why didn't they do more? Because she got out and is there at the final battle. And she ends up doing the Crucio, whatever, one on Hermione. And then was fighting Malfoy and was trying to kill him. So then little Miss Granger is so mad, she kills Bellatrix in the fight.
And it's like, oh, look, there's your magic.
Yeah, it like came back with like a vengeance. And
did we explain that Granger made it back to the battle with Theo?
Kind of.
Yes, yeah.
Yeah, they're all there. They're all there.
Okay. Yep.
So I was a little mad that they didn't. But anyways, they're all like,
also really quick, I looked it up. We just fixing this. Yes, it is true. You can't apparate in and out of Hogwarts. I looked it up. He didn't apparate.
oh, did he
We
just
were
run?
both wrong. Yes.
Oh, well,
Majestic steps.
he just
I'm like,
leaves. It
why
doesn't
did I?
matter.
Why? I also remembered it. I thought he
I
apparated
thought,
too.
anyway, so
I'm
he
an
just
idiot.
runs. He just runs.
That's
Harry
all.
wins. He wins, right? And they're all there. Both Hermione, Draco, Malfoy, and Granger. They're all there, so everybody's seeing them, right? And they're like coming up and giving congratulations and all this stuff. And I thought it was cute that Granger was holding Malfoy's hand, even though she was mad at him for sending her through the closet. She was still holding his hand at the end. And
It
so
is cute.
they're like giving like congratulations and all this stuff. And then the Aurors come in and start rounding up anybody that was on Voldemort's side. And I was a little confused because they made it seem like the Aurors were on Voldemort's side up until that point. Or like they supported something that he was doing. Is that the original story?
It's most of the ministry was part of it, but a lot of them are just part of it because they don't know what else to do other than, okay, I'm just going to follow the leadership who's above me telling me what to do. So I think a lot of them ended up being that way too.
Yeah. So anyways, they start rounding up people, and Harry looks at Malfoy, Draco, and Theo and is like, you guys should probably leave because they're
just gonna take you and ask questions later.
So they go back to the safe house, and Hermione is like trying to figure out like what's happening. Granger fell asleep. She was so tired she fell asleep. And before he left, Malfoy went and took her up to his room and put her in bed and then left. So anyway, she's sleeping. Yep. And so they're trying to like figure out like what's happening and all this stuff. So anyways, they find out pretty much that they're like, you guys are going to have to turn yourselves in. Like, there's not like
there's no way around it. You're just going to be on the run.
It's going to look worse. Yeah, you're going to be on the run. So you're just going to have to. And so they decide that just Malfoy and Theo are going to turn themselves in, not Draco. Because
but Draco and Hermione are going to come to the ministry with them. Yeah. Do you remember that part? Because
that was dumb.
It made me laugh.
Because the whole thing is like, okay, if Draco goes, they're going to arrest him, and then they're never going to let him go back to his original tribe.
Yes, but yet, so why did he show up? Why did him and Hermione? Because they start coming down in the phone booth, and then they get halfway, and they see Malfoy and Theo get arrested, and then they go, never mind, and then they go back up. Do you remember that?
Yeah, I don't know why they were there at the first place.
But like it made me laugh, because I'm like, oh shit. Okay,
I think
never mind.
idea behind it was that they were going to, like, add their testimonies to help them release.
Okay.
Malfoy
that's right, because
Theo.
they weren't expecting the Aurors just to come in and, like,
arrest them on the spot. They thought they were going to go walk up
violently
and, like, talk
arrest them,
stuff.
like, get over here, whatever. Yeah, they thought they'd be able to make it to the DMLE to talk about it, and nope, that didn't happen. So then
they get arrested.
Yep.
Okay. It's at this time that they go. Draco goes back to the safe house because again, they're like, if you get arrested, you may never go home, so you need to hide. Yep. And Granger and Hermione are working together to find a way to get rid of the charges, especially for Theo. They're like, he has done nothing wrong, so he should not be in prison at all because he never took the dark mark. He was working on their side at the end.
You have the stupid, or what's his name, Robards, whatever his name is.
Robards.
Yes.
And he was like, your dad is a Death Eater.
Can't remember his first name, but yeah, he's like, his dad was Death Eater. Oh, good. And Granger's like, my parents are dentists.
What does that mean? Like, she was kind of sassy. And so it was just, I wanted to make a note that at this point, little Hermione and Draco, little lovers in Loverland, okay, they're just waiting to go home, but they're both like, we can't leave until we see, like, what's happening. Like, we don't want to leave if Malfoy's going to be, like, in prison, and, like, they just want to make sure. It's like their own little curiosity. They're like, we have to know that this timeline's going to be fine. So anyways, they have sex. Okay. They have sex. Again, I thought that they had already had sex, so I was like, okay, interesting. They have sex. So anyways, so they get Theo out pretty fast, like within a week of him being arrested. And he comes back to the safe house, and Harry brings him back, and he's like, not tonight. Like, I need to sleep. I'm hungry. Like, you can talk to me later. And Granger gets the notice that she can go and visit. And so this whole time, Granger is kind of like fighting herself a little bit, because she's like, I personally want Malfoy out, like, for completely selfish reasons. She's like, I want him out because it makes me feel better. She's like, should he be in there? Should he answer his crimes? She's like, maybe, but I want him out, so it doesn't matter. So she's like fighting with herself. And so she goes and visits him and finds out that he's not had a solicitor and like all this stuff. So she like gets it all set up, and it's all cute. And they find out through, I think it was the Unspeakable that told them that, like, you cannot talk about about Draco and Hermione, like, during his trial and everything. Like, you cannot bring that up. It's a big no-no. Like, they weren't supposed to say anything, like, that kind of thing. Like, no, you cannot bring them up. And so Ron, this is the first and only time you'll ever hear me say this. Ron was smart in this moment, okay?
Okay, I'm glad that you're bringing this up, because I absolutely was. I was going to say, shout out to Ron Weasley.
He was smart for
being
in his life,
great in this fic. He was.
You can talk, like, you could just talk about it, but not differentiate, like, say who it was. Like, you could say, like, oh yeah, well, Draco did this. And technically you'd be right. It's just that Draco did it and not Malfoy, but who are they going to know that you're not talking? And so he was like, you could just do it. And so they were like trying to come up with like a plan to like get Malfoy out. And so they come up, well, Granger really comes up with the idea of like, okay, we're not going to say that he is innocent. We're like, he's going to claim he's guilty. Like, but we're going to try to change it to focus on like, he was put in like an impossible situation. He didn't really have a choice. Like, really hammer home that like he did things because he had no other option, not that he wanted to, kind of thing. And so they like have all these, it's like the different guilt press. And she at one point says something about like, I should be shocked at how a rich white boy and like how the media is like switching so fast for him. And she's like, but I want him out, so I'm glad it's working.
Oh my God.
The whole time, everything that like she's doing, she's like, she's like shocked and mad that it's like exploiting the system in a way.
Mm-hmm.
But she's like, honestly, let's exploit it right now. Get Granger out, or get Malfoy out, and then we can fix it. So she's like using it to her advantage, and it was kind of funny. They end up going to trial, doing all this stuff. The trial was fine. It wasn't, I don't think there was anything like huge, but they did come up with the tagline because Harry comes out and defends him, and Hermione comes out and defends him. So they came up with the tagline, the boy who lived and the boy who had no choice. And the boy who had no choice is Malfoy.
Well, it's funny, because guess what? That's a Remain Nameless line.
I was going to say,
I don't know if they got it from Remain Nameless. I think it might just be a Hermione line. Like, they use it in a lot of fics. Yep.
It was cute.
Remain Nameless.
So anyways.
Happens in the bathroom at St. Mungo's. You're welcome.
He gets out. They end up letting him be free because Granger, who's Granger at this point, she like went and made this huge like press release of how she was like, the members on the council are all huge hypocrites, and like she was like, they're all support, and like it was crazy. So everybody was mad at her. And anyways, he gets out free. That's like the sum moral of the story. He gets free. And this was getting closer to the end. It's like, okay, how cute, right? I was a little mad. Chapter 28, okay? Again, this has 30 chapters, so it's right at the end. Malfoy says to Granger, like, we need to confront this thing between us. And she's like, okay.
Tell me that you loved this.
No, because he goes, let me tell you why. He goes, we need to confront this thing. And she goes, yeah. Like us? And he goes, yeah. And she's like, okay. And then it stopped. That was it. I was like,
is that? But then they do. When is
later,
it that they do? Oh, is it later than that?
Later.
Okay.
Yeah. So
I'm just thinking about when they do.
That was them like walking out of like the courthouse. So then they go back to the safe house.
And then they sleep.
And they end up going to sleep, and they wake up in the morning. Yeah, they just like lay in, not sex.
I know. But
so they wake up. And she's immediately like, oh my gosh, like, what are we doing? Like, we didn't really like define everything. Like, again, she's like freaking out. And so she's like, what's happening? And they like start making out pretty aggressively. And then that's when everybody walks in.
Yeah, everybody just barges into their room.
And they're like, this is not a free show. And anyway, so they're like doing stuff. So then they're finally like, okay, Draco and Hermione can leave. Like, Malfoy's free. Everybody is like safe. Granger was talking about like what she's gonna do in the next steps of like fixing things and like what she wants to do with like her life and everything. And chapter 29, the saddest thing, I actually teared up. I didn't send it to you guys. So they're saying their goodbyes. Okay. And Harry, in earlier, when they were playing their little drinking game, and they were talking about the differences of the universe, like their universes, Harry at one point asks about his parents. And in the other universe, his parents are alive.
I was going to go back to this. Okay? I was going to go back to this.
So you're just a little sad, right, while they're playing their drinking game. But then, as Harry is saying goodbye, he gives them a piece of the two-way mirror. Yes. And he says, oh, it's just that way, like, we can communicate.
And I don't know if we'll be able to.
Work. Like, we can try.
But if
Hermione catches on and sits down next to him and is like, I can try to get, if it works, you can try to talk to your parents. And he was like, okay. I wasn't prepared for that. Like, heartbreaking. And then, chapter 29 pulled my heartstrings because then Malfoy's talking to Granger. And Granger's like, what are we doing? Like, what's
There
the
we
plan?
go. Yes, this is what I was waiting for.
Malfoy starts talking about, like, I want to be there with you.
I love this.
The person who like, wakes up with you. And, like, I want to argue with you and all of this stuff. And
I want to show you my chateau in France or wherever. And like, I want to.
It was this whole monologue. And
I'm like, tell me more.
Okay, no, this is the part that I teared up. She goes, after he says this whole thing, she goes to talk to him. And she starts to say Malfoy. And he goes, no, say my name. Because my first name was, I feel like my first name was also taken from me.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. It's so sweet.
So anyways, she calls him Draco, and it's cute. And Draco and Hermione and Malfoy and Granger all walk back to the time room or whatever, and they like say their goodbyes. And Hermione and Draco leave. They go home. Okay? That's the end of chapter 29. 30 is like the epilogue of like what's happening. So if you find it's 2 years later, it's Hermione and Draco in the original like the first universe that we started in. It's 2 years. They're married.
And they're married. Yep.
Yeah, they're married.
It's cute.
You find out.
So sweet.
You find out the two-way mirror never worked, but they have it on top of their mantle. Like they check it all the time, just in case. They have it on top of their mantle. And she gets some letters, and she's like, going through a mail like a normal person. Holly, you might have to explain this because it was a little confusing to me, but like I think I got the gist. I think
okay. I already had to explain this several times earlier tonight to my sister when I was telling her about this fic. I told her everything.
I think if I'm going to explain it, it's going to come out wrong. I think I'm going to get things wrong.
Okay, so she's going through her mail, and she has a letter from her Defense Against the Dark Arts professor, Professor Arthur James Turner. I'm going to let that sit there for 2 seconds because you're already nodding your head.
I read this last.
Oh, you did? Okay, that's
like,
right.
What the fuck is all of this?
Okay. So, long story short, Harry Potter found a time turner. Was it sitting on Dumbledore's desk?
Yes. After Dumbledore pretty much spilled everything about like what he the prophecy and like who he is and what he
he's a Horcrux, whatever. There's just a time turner sitting on Dumbledore's desk.
And scared little teenage Harry.
I'm going to use this, and I'm going to go back and make sure Voldemort never happens. So he does.
He goes back.
He goes back all the way back to his Voldemort's mother, Merope. I was going to say Riddle. No, Merope Gaunt. And he befriends her. That's it. That is all that happens to change the tides. She never has Tom Riddle. And So this
So
world,
that
this new
created
world
a
that he
new
has created,
timeline.
and divergence and all of this, and which is the timeline that Draco and Hermione are from. That's the
The cute
reason
one
they
with
don't
no
know
Voldemort.
Voldemort. And so that's all he did. And he went to the Department of Mysteries to find out like what to do. And he ended up staying on the timeline. I can't remember.
They said
why.
that he had done too, like it
He
had
had
been
too
too
much,
long or like something.
something.
He couldn't go back
There was no way to send him back. So
to
he had
his
to
original.
live
So he
out
had to
his life
stay.
and live out his life. So he became a professor at Hogwarts, the Defense Against Dark Arts. He teaches himself. He teaches Hermione, Ron, like all of them.
See, that's the part that I got stuck on because it's like, how the heck? I was like, how the heck is he teaching
it does.
himself? But then I was like, okay,
because
it's a different timeline.
It's because he just went back far enough in time, and now he's living. His parents still meet each other. They still fall in love. They have him, but it's not him. It is, but it's not. And so, and he lives
makes sense
his own
to me.
life.
Okay,
yeah,
good.
me too.
Surprisingly, time travel is quite simple. So
I know, yes, and that
Okay.
like when things are said, I go, "Whoa, yeah, that makes sense," and then something else is said, "Whoa, yeah, that makes sense." Like that could happen, whatever. So he became Arthur James Turner. I loved that this was the name he chose for himself.
Yep.
I'm not gonna lie, it took me a second to understand Turner. I'm like, Turner? No, duh, Holly. I'm Turner. Anyway, but Arthur as his pseudo father, and then James as his father. And I'm like, break pal. Anyway,
So his note
making me feel feelings.
His note was cute because he was like, you remember me just like as this teacher, like in the background, like with little helpful notes and like being there, but he's like, this is as close as like I could get to you and Ron, and like I just loved like being able to be there. And he's like, if you're reading this, and like I passed, and like I'm it's just like so it's
That's fierce.
You cry sometimes so easy. I hope you know that. That's why we love you.
Oh my gosh. Oh, it's great. Oh, good. Tracy, this fic was great.
I was gonna say, after you get through the first part where it's a little confusing and it's a little bit like setting up things, after you get into it, it's cute.
Yes. It's
so
gonna be.
And so anyways, she reads this and it's just, she's got some emotions or whatever, and Draco comes back home and is like, hey honey, like how's the mail? And she decides not to tell him because Harry is still alive and Harry is his best friend. So she's like, I'm not gonna worry him. He's fine. Like this is gonna be like my own little thing. She's like folds it away, puts it away.
Yep.
That's it.
Doesn't even share it with Draco.
Thick
it's
ends.
just hers. And I'm like, oh my gosh, that's the saddest thing like in the world, but it's also so sweet. Like it is. And so, but then the sister I was explaining it to earlier, she's like, so then what happened to Harry's time? He just disappeared with a time turner. I'm like, exactly. I bet you Voldemort won. There's all these different divergence of all these different realities that happened because he did this. So, I mean, really, we could have multiple fics about all of these different things, which we get with Timeless. If you go read Timeless, there are multiples, and I like them. Anyway, sorry.
So, now that you've heard the whole plot, and I've pretty much told you the whole story, would you go in and read it?
Yeah. Yes, I would.
It's cute. I think I definitely would need to read this again, just to really fully get everything that I missed and like pick up on it, especially now that like it's easier to understand how things are sitting. And like I said, the author was very good about helping you make that distinction between there's Draco and Hermione and there's Malfoy and Granger, and the way that the way that the author wrote the characters, it even helps them to be different, because like Malfoy comes off as a little bit more snarky, a little bit more like cold.
Malfoy's Malfoy.
Yeah, but Draco is a lot more warm and a lot more like just easygoing. And there was one point he actually comes off as a little bit of a himbo because they go into. He has to open. I don't know where they were going. They had to go somewhere. And they have to open it. And they're like, we need someone with muscles. And so Draco is like, obviously I'm the strongest. And like walks up and just like opens it. And then he turns around and grins at Hermione.
Oh my god.
Yes.
He just wanted to impress his girl.
It's so cute. Like there's just so many.
There's so many things.
I love that you get everything you want. I feel like you do.
Because we didn't mention this, and I can't believe we didn't after everything we were harping on them. So after the battle, after Theo gets let out, you find out Granger is talking to Harry, and he's like, listen, I feel something for Ginny, but it's not the same something I feel for Theo. So even in that universe, Harry and Theo become a thing.
Yes. Yep.
Look, I am on the Harry Potter is a bisexual train.
Oh yeah.
Die on that hill.
Yes. Yep.
Like, just put like Ginny and Theo with Harry in the middle, just a sandwich.
You should go read various Storms and Saints.
Oh my god.
I was gonna say that happens.
Not know. Okay, I'll get to it.
Get that out. We're gonna have to get that out
because we're gonna do this on the fic. We're gonna do it on the podcast. But that
absolutely so good. Anyway,
it's good.
Anyway, let's go back. I need to give a shout out to Ron Weasley because, okay, Carrie Ann, you can't even hate him in this fic because here's the thing. He was so mature in this fic. He really was.
So listen,
he was.
To a degree, because there was a moment, he talks to Hermione,
I know.
at one point.
Yes.
And he's saying, like,
This is true.
I love Granger, but I think our time has passed. Like,
Mm-hmm.
I left, I messed up. But he's telling this to Hermione. And
he is.
Not Granger.
He is.
And he never talks to Granger about it.
Guess what? Everyone's a coward. That's why. And I don't know. I still felt like he was a lot
bitter,
more
though,
mature.
because he accepted Malfoy pretty
and he
easily.
wasn't even mad. He wasn't upset by it. Like, I mean, maybe a little bit, but maybe he was a little bit. Maybe he told Hermione that, but at the same time, he was very accepting and very mature. Very
like
not
Malfoy
Ron Weasley.
went over to the Burrow and had dinner with everybody.
Yep.
Didn't he?
Was it just Draco or was it Malfoy?
I think it was all of them.
It was all of them? Yeah, they did. Yeah.
I was nervous. I was thinking about a different pick for a second.
And I don't know. I really did. I liked Ron Weasley. I loved that he asked Hermione. He said, "So we're not friends in your timeline." She goes, "No, we're not, because he said rude things when they were younger, because that's what he did in the canon timeline too." And he's like, "I need you to go back and I need you to befriend me. Because
I'm much better with you in my life."
He's like, "I don't care what version of me is out there. He needs you in his life. Oh. So please go and be friends with me." Like, and it's sweet. It's like, and then she does. I think it's mentioned in the last chapter that because she became friends with all of them. Like,
she became better
easier
friends
with Harry
through Draco
because they're already best friends.
Yeah, she became friends and all that stuff. But yeah, it's like, okay.
And it's also sweet because she talks about somewhere in the middle, I think they're at the safe house, talks about how it's a lot easier for a pureblood in society to do whatever they want, and it's not easy for her. And Draco's like, "That's just not true." And she goes, "It is true. How hard was it for you to get into the Department of Mysteries,
the internship
to get an interview, to get the internship? Did you just apply for it and get in?" Basically, yes. I had to go to all my teachers. They had to write letters of recommendation. I had to go to other people and beg them to help me get this. That's the only way I got it. Not even because of my grades, not because of this. I had to do all this extra work. It's because I'm Muggle-born. That it's just plain and simple. And then he has he thinks about it and everything. And he's like, "Actually, you're right. Because, I think about my parents," and it makes him feel disgusted that his parents in this alternate reality would choose Voldemort and something like that. Like, it disgusts him. And it's like, well, yeah, I mean, that's kind of a horrible thing to be thrown into and find out that your family would have chosen something like this over, common sense.
Yeah.
And so, he kind of has that realization and is like, oh, wow, you're right. And so, I mean, even though it obviously didn't happen the same way in their timeline, he can see that there is kind of that racism, if that's what you would call it, there.
Bigotry.
Yeah, bigotry. That's like that in their timeline. And then, I just like that they defy all odds and they go home and get married. And it's just so cute.
Again, chapter 29 ripped my heart out because Hermione says something along the lines of like, I love the idea that in other universes, Draco and I find our way to each other. Because she was like watching Malfoy.
No, it's the last chapter. It's chapter 30.
Oh.
Because I wrote it down. Hang on. I didn't write it down. I wrote down that I needed to write it down. That was what I was talking about. It's the second to last I think it is. It's just her reminiscing over everything. And in the second to last paragraph, she says that Hermione had always known, really since he had taken her hand in the ministry in a world that was not their own and given her his trust, that he would always be her choice in any version of any timeline where chance aligned to bring them together. It felt like he was a central pillar in the shifting foundations of her existence, and for that, she could only ever be grateful. So cute.
What am I talking about? That's a different quote. Yeah, I'm going to find it right now.
Okay, you find it.
I'm going to find it right now.
While you're finding it, shout out also. I loved this. When Theo, they're in Borgin and Burke's, him and Granger, after Draco has thrown her through the vanishing cabinet. And Theo is saying, hey, when you have kids, Granger, I want you to name them all after me. And she's like, what are you talking about? And he's like, they're all going to be named Theodore. She's like, that's not how that works. You can have Theo, Theodora, Teddy, Dora. You might have to double up on some, but I won't mind. It's funny. I really enjoyed Theo in this fic.
He was good. I'm telling you right now that it took a minute to get into it. But as soon as you do, it picks up and it's really like
obviously Tracy, based on your emotions.
It takes a minute to really start to like click, like for things to click. But
I'm trying not to think about it because I still
like I said, that one line from frickin' Various Storms and Saints, it made you cry when I said it. Do you remember?
No,
no, it wasn't you. It was Carrie Ann.
I'm right now. Do not. I am not stable enough. I will cry right now.
Well, I can't because it kind of is a spoiler, so I can't do it. I mean, it's not, but it is, so I'm not going to say it.
It is. It's fine.
But Tracy doesn't really mind when we spoil things for her.
Sometimes I let you know. Yeah, sometimes I let you know. Most of the time, I don't really care.
Okay, right here, chapter 29. Maybe it was overly sentimental, but she liked to think that she and Draco would find their way to each other on any timeline or any that allowed them to be together, and Malfoy and Granger were no exception, despite their rocky start.
Oh, it was different.
Anyway, I know.
There we go. When you do that, I just go, money? Tip?
Oh, I liked it. It's a little heart. Anyway.
So, if you've listened this whole way through the episode, and you did not want to read it, that's fine. But recommend it to other people because we liked it. You're welcome.
I really love this fic.
The whole synopsis.
I really, really do. And now after going through it the way that we did, I love it even more. So
I was going to say, I definitely did not. It was a very well written fic. And there were a lot of things that I did not talk about that like Polly brought up. There were things that just weren't.
I'm going to keep going back because I'm reading other notes here and I'm going, oh boy, we missed this. We missed this.
I missed quite a bit.
This was sweet.
You guys, you told me the whole like spiel. So now tell me your thoughts about certain things, or go through your notes. So
because of all the fan fictions that I've read now, I get mad when people keep it canon that Remus and Tonks die. Yes. In the Battle of Hogwarts, I get mad. Ooh. Well, this stayed canon compliant.
This one was canon compliant,
and it was really sad because Draco walks up and sees his cousin dead. Draco walks up and sees Tonks dead. And cries for her because it's his cousin. And what's even worse, what's worse about this is later They go back to their timeline,
It's
and
been
she's
a
dead.
couple weeks. Yeah,
Because
they
at
found
the
out that
same
some
time,
things don't change,
some things don't change and
like with
still
the
happen in
timelines.
each universe. Was it Bellatrix that also died?
Bellatrix
Tonks
died
and
at the
Bellatrix
same.
both died
Yeah,
the same day or
How?
something.
they
It
said it
just
was natural, unexpected kind of thing, but they were just saying like there are some things that it doesn't matter what
that it doesn't
timeline
matter
it
what
is,
timeline, it just
it's going
happens.
to happen.
And so he came back and Tonks was really dead.
My I'm putting this back to like Marvel.
I know.
So I'm just like, oh no, yeah, they talk about that. I think in like Loki or something.
Oh,
I don't know.
gall.
Like
That's
things
so
have
funny.
to happen the way they do. Oh, that's kind of depressing. I don't like
I
that.
know.
Okay.
Yeah. Well, so when he sees Tonks dead, like he cries about it, and then they walk out to the courtyard, and Hagrid is carrying a dead Harry, and he cries all over again. Draco does because that's
because
his best friend.
is here. Yeah.
And I'm like, oh my gosh, this poor guy. This
Okay.
poor
If
guy.
we're going back, I wrote one more quote. Okay,
Uh-huh.
this was a cute little one. This was in the beginning when Granger wakes up. Okay, and so things are still awkward. This is before her and Malfoy really start getting to their tension. And so she walks out to the kitchen, and Malfoy was like, "Do you want some tea?" And she goes, "Sure." He goes, "Okay, off you go." Go make her own tea. No, I thought that was so funny. It's so dumb.
I liked it when Granger is looking for her clothes that she was wearing when she got to the safe house because they changed her because she was covered in blood.
And Theo's
Theo
like, "It's
takes
in the
her
laundry
into a
room."
room. It's in the laundry room. So they go in there and there's mountains of clothes because Theo doesn't bother
Doesn't
to
wash them. He just throws them
laundry.
in there.
He just wears everything once and then throws it in there. She's like, "How do you have that many clothes?" "Well, I'm rich, so
Oh my god.
great."
This was just it was cute. It was good. I really did like it. And Tracy can attest that I sent her a message at one point and was like, I don't know if I can do it. I don't know if I can get into it, but I do. I liked it. I would say it was around chapter 6 or 7 that it really started to like click for me. That's what I would say. And I read it. I did not listen to it.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if that makes a difference to some people.
No.
I can't. I think listening to things is harder for me.
See, and it's so funny because I used to be that way before I found Hermione. Before I finally read Remain Nameless. And I read Remain Nameless the first time because there was no way I was going to listen to it. But I didn't even know that a listening option existed at the time. I read it, and I read it, I think, 2 or 3 times before I realized up at the top of Remain Nameless on AO3, it says, "There's an audio version available. Click here." And I clicked it, and it took me to Spotify. And I listened to it, and I went, this is actually great because my house is falling apart because all I want to do now is read Remain Nameless over and over and over again, and I'm not doing anything. So I listened to it. My house had never been more immaculate. Now it still falls apart because I'll just sit and listen. But I love that there are audio versions out there, and I listen up a storm. So I'm always grateful when there's audio, and this one is on audio. Makes me happy.
I should try this one on audio. Maybe that would help me a little bit more. I don't know.
It was good. Do it. Listen to it. Read it.
I'm so glad you're listening to The Dead of Time.
Yes.
You tug my heartstrings when you listen to something I want you to listen to. I know you've read it before, but you're listening to it.
That goes into our next part. What is everybody doing? What are you reading? What's up? What are you doing these days?
So it's been a little while since we've recorded. What have we all read since we recorded last?
Don't ask me that.
We've all read a lot. We've read a lot of stuff.
Okay, go first.
Go ahead.
I'm going first. Hang on. Let me pull up Storygraph because that's what I use.
Too.
I've just been setting my reading goal for the year to 30. In January, I read 14 books. 15 actually. So, I have been on an Ice Planet Barbarians kick for some fucking reason. The Carrion, I just never really finished them. I just never finished, like, I read them a long time ago, got Carrie-Anne into it, because I'm just like that, and then I just kind of, like, tapered off, and so I've been reading the rest and getting into, like, the Ice Home and stuff, so I'm still currently reading it. right now, when we're recording this, Crescent City 3 came out earlier this week, and so that's why I didn't read this fanfiction. Because I had to absorb what I read.
Yep.
And I am so reading the 15 godforsaken Ice Planet Barbarians book, Crescent City 3, and listening to The Dead of Time. My ADHD or ADD brain, whatever, has been loving this. So
what are you doing now? What are you reading
listening to The Dead of Time, and I've started, I'm like 4 pages in to it's one of the Ice Planet, The Barbarian Before Christmas. That's what I'm reading right now.
That's a really cute little novella, Holly.
Yeah. And yeah, so that's what I'm doing right at this moment. The Dead of Time, though, I did start listening to it. Actually, as I was putting on my makeup that I've now cried off, I was listening to it, and I had to stop because I started to tear up. And I had to stop putting my makeup on to like calm down. And I turned it off to finish my makeup. So, okay, that's it.
What about you, Holly? What are you doing? What are you up to?
So listen.
How many are you listening to right now?
I read so many. I read so many things since we recorded last. I read the first 2 Barbarian books because they ended up being at my library. I listened to them, and they were the trashiest trash I've ever read.
But were they good?
You can't get enough.
Did you enjoy it?
Am I eventually going to read the rest? Absolutely. Oh, yes, of course I enjoyed it. Do I adamantly deny that I enjoyed them? 100%.
Oh, I don't. I flaunt that bad boy.
So do I. At this
you
point,
need
I
that
do
candle
too.
then. You need that candle from Etsy.
I really do.
You're thinking about your 7-foot-tall blue barbarian again.
We all have a favorite
the dragon.
Oh my god, hers is the dragon. I'm for the love.
Anyway.
Okay, see, I don't know which ones I read. Hold on. Because if I go to our list, if I just go alphabetically, I read... Okay, hang on. Nope, I can't think of what they're called. I'm sorry. I take forever. I read Best Shot. What was that one? Oh, that one it was really short. It was a one shot, but it was 23,000 words. So it was a longer one shot. Hermione comes back in time to her 8th year at Hogwarts as her 45-year-old self. With a time turner, and tells Hermione, your husband is dead, and I'm here to change that so that it doesn't happen. And it's sweet, it's short, kind of cute. It wasn't sad. It sounds sad. Okay. It was not sad. Which, so you can draw your own conclusions of how it ended. Anyway, I read that. I read Bedside Manor. Did I read that one? Hang on. No, I ended up not reading that one. I read Be My Baby.
We all read Be My Baby.
Yeah.
Listen. If you are into, and I'm okay. This is age play. Daddy and little girl, DDLG. If you are into that, that's the fic for you.
I read Blackmailed. It's called Blackmailed by Mistress Lynn. They wrote From Wiltshire with Love, which I enjoyed. I enjoyed that one. And then what was the one that we read, Carrie Ann, that you didn't like it as much as I did, but I loved it?
Was it the T one?
No,
The Best of Me?
I need to read that one. The Best of Me, yes.
Okay.
That's the one where Hermione went missing.
I don't know why you think that I didn't like it. I did.
I thought you said you didn't like it.
No, I did. I liked it.
Oh, okay.
It was cute.
Never mind then. Perfect. I'm glad. That one was cute. It was Harry and Draco are Oars, and they've been looking for Hermione Granger for the last 6 years. She went missing at the Battle of Hogwarts, and they find the little 6-year-old Scorpius, and then her, and she doesn't have her memories. It's really sweet. It's so cute. It was good. It was really good. I feel like I've read a lot more. I'm reading Secrets and Masks. I can't put it down, except for this. I've been here chatting with you guys for a little while now. as soon as I'm done, I am popping those headphones back in and I am listening to that one. Oh boy. Ah. It like, so it's a little slow in places. And when we talk about irredeemable Draco Malfoy, I can't give it away what happens, but ooh, it makes him so desirable.
Oh my god.
Anyway, I think that's it on my list.
Okay.
That's all.
How many books did you say you read in January, Tracy?
15.
14. Oh, 15.
It says 16 right now, but it's just because I just finished CC3 yesterday, so it had to have been 15. So.
Guess how many I read?
Oh my god. What?
Oh my.
33.
Holy shit.
Okay, everybody needs to know that Carrie Ann is like the
Reads.
speediest
Apparently
reader.
inhuman. I don't know.
You
So
are
fucking
inhuman.
fast.
I can't. So maybe
Okay,
it's just because.
okay, we'll put it this way. The Crescent City book, okay, the third one that came out, it tells me that it's 838 pages. Okay? I finished it in a day. One day.
How do you?
I
How
slept,
does your mind
too.
comprehend
I read
the
it a little
words that
bit.
you're reading?
I don't know.
In your head? Like, do you picture it? Are you
It
seeing
becomes
it?
like a movie.
That's cool.
Yeah, you're like me, Carrie Ann.
Well, that's like
a
me
movie in
too,
my
but I
head.
have to perfect it in my head, make it look
God.
exactly how I want it, and that's why I'm such a slow reader. I can read quickly, but if I'm going to actually enjoy it and see it in my head, I can't read quickly.
It depends the book. There's some where I'll just like fly through it. Carrie Ann read that in a day. I hit the 50% mark in a day. Yeah, so
and you took the whole day off of work.
I did. Okay, in my defense, I took a 2.5 hour break in between reading. But yeah, no, I can read quickly, but I guess it just depends what it is. See, Crescent City and like Sarah J. Maas books usually aren't that. Just I don't know. I mean, I
sorry.
Anyways, I'm not done.
Whatever.
So
Okay.
this is what I'm reading right now. Okay. The Ever King by L.J. Andrew. I've heard really good things about. Butcher and Blackbird.
I've heard that's so good. Is it?
I've heard it so. I haven't read it yet. I've heard it's so good. I bought it, so I'm gonna read it. It's something serial killer or something.
Yeah.
So I'm all for it.
Like serial killers fall in love or something like that.
I'm all for it.
What I hear. So
and then I'm finishing the series by Opal Rain, the like A Soul to Keep, A Soul to Heal, A Soul to like Take, and like that kind of stuff. I'm on the third.
I have A Soul to Keep saved on my Spotify audio. I have the hiccups. I'm sorry. Is that any good? Is it worth it? Okay.
It's very monster smut though. So
I know.
There's really okay. Listen, no, I was saying this to somebody. Okay, I do read monster smut, but like you think about Ice Planet Barbarians, like they are roughly human shaped,
right?
Like
it's humanoid.
They have a lot of human features. That's the most non-human.
Okay, I was gonna say, and human features we wish that humans actually had, but whatever.
Like I've read a lot of stuff, and that's the most human. And again, I have read like potato shifters and like turkey things, and so like the idea that this is the most non-human is, but the doorknob changes into a human. So like it's just like
then
this
why
is the most
a doorknob? Why?
Because he's a door. Anyways, I'm not getting into this with you. That could be a whole separate episode on how that. If you're looking for the dumbest of dumb books, that's the one to go with because it has an actual plot and it's only 50-something pages. It's fast. It's easy.
That's what she said.
That's what I'm doing. Okay. And I'm reading. Listen. If you guys are on TikTok and you find our TikTok, Hermione Fanfic Fanatics, if you send us any recommendations for any fan fictions, I will immediately go and read it. I have little self-control. I will pull it up and I will read it the second that I see. Like, if I scroll through TikTok, that's how I found a bunch of them. It's like, anyways. So, if you're looking for to send some recommendations our way, that's a very fast way for me to read it.
Yep.
So.
Yep. It's true. I forgot to say, I also read that scary book that you have, Tracy.
Which one? I have many.
The Haunted. Is that Yeah, The Haunted. Remember?
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
I
Yep.
gotta.
Because my
this is-
mother, oh, listen, my mother was like, here, I need you to read this. It was so scary. I need you to read it. I'm like, Mom, I'm not going to listen to it. It's terrible. I can't read a scary book. And it wouldn't scare me anyway, because it's just a book.
Oh, I remember you sending the Marco Polos about that one.
I was terrified. I was terrified out of my mind. I read it though. I listened to it. And in turn, I said, Mom, you need to listen to Remain Nameless. She said, I don't know if I'll ever do that. I said, it's fine, but here you go. And I kept sending it to her on Apple Podcasts. She drove down to Arizona today and she listened to Remain Nameless. I think she's on chapter 8 right now. And I was like, and how's it going? She goes, it's going good. Great. I'm not going to push for anything else other than it's going great. Can't wait till you hit the smut, Mom. You get a little taste of what I read every day. Although it was so funny to hear, which I'm like, yeah, so we read, I read these books, the ACOTAR series. She goes, I read that. You read that? Why did you read that? It was good.
Did she
Mom,
get to Silver
you
Flames?
read that? I think she read all of it.
Because that one.
Which one? I'm trying to think of which one. She was like, I think it was which one is Silver Flames? Is that the last one?
Nesta Cassian. Yeah.
Yes.
Nesta.
Okay. She was like, oh, what'd she say? She was like, oh yeah, it got really gross. Yeah, F me in the mouth. And I'm like, she goes, I'm just quoting the book.
Oh my gosh.
It was really smutty. I'm like, okay. It's just funny. It's funny to find out all these things about my mother I never knew.
You go.
It's funny. That's all. That's all. I'm just getting people to read Remain Nameless.
Okay, well, should we end it? Should we call it?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
Thanks for listening. Join us next time. I'm going to say this wrong because I don't speak French. So,
Presque.
presque toujours per.
Toujours per.
By Shyalani is how we're pronouncing that. That's going to be our next one. So go ahead and read that and come back and join us next time.
Yep.
Hermione Fanfic Fanatics is a fan podcast that discusses and reviews fanfiction written by various authors, based on the characters Hermione Granger and Draco Malfoy from the Harry Potter series, created and owned by J.K. Rowling. We do not own the rights to the Harry Potter series, its characters, or any of the fanfiction works mentioned in this podcast. The purpose of our podcast is to provide commentary, analysis, and entertainment related to the fanfiction community and to foster a sense of community among fans. We respect the creative efforts of fanfiction authors and consider their works as transformative interpretations of the original source material. All fanfiction works discussed on this podcast are the intellectual property of their respective authors. We aim to provide proper attribution and promote the fanfiction community by linking to the author's original works where possible. This podcast is created for entertainment purposes and is not intended to infringe upon the rights of the copyright holders. If you are the author of a fanfiction work discussed on this podcast and would like us to remove or modify our content related to your work, please contact us and we will promptly address your request. By listening to this podcast, you acknowledge and agree to the terms of this disclaimer.